Hello out there in Cyberland. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, depending on when you're watching this video. This is CyberSpesh, Mr. Robert Speciale here from the 0x feed, and we are going to talk about a very important topic right now. It is part of Unit 1, Topic 1.1, and that is exploring phishing. And no, I do not mean we're going to go get on a boat and go look for some fish in the lake or anything like that. We're talking about phishing from the cybersecurity standpoint. Now, listen. I've done a really good job at keeping everything kind of Matrix themed and all that other fun stuff. But you know what? I wanted to change things up. And this may look a little silly, but some people might enjoy this theme. And you know what? I find it entertaining myself, so I don't care. The information in here, though, is what's really good. So we're going to take a look at that. We're also going to take a look at some examples and some other websites you can look at hosted by some colleges, universities. In regards to this topic, which is a really big one in terms of understanding social engineering. As we talked about last time in our overview of Unit 1, Topic 1.1, we're really concerned with the human element that goes on with cybersecurity, where very little of this discussion is going to be about technology today, and much more how humans look to try and get at your information and use a lot of different tactics that, as I said in one of the other earlier videos, are tactics that look very familiar if you had to go purchase a car or buy a house or something like that. But we'll get into it as we go along, and I'll probably have to move my box all over the place and all that other stuff. So let's get going. Now, so we take a look at the the graphics. It is, I know this is silly, but you know what? I actually enjoy this. All right, so the cyber attack pipeline. So when we're taking a look at the life cycle of how a hack could potentially happen, the different stages that you're going to learn about, whether it's reconnaissance, initial access, persistence, lateral movement, taking action, and evading detection, right? All that stuff is great. We're not talking about any of that right now. We are living in the world of initial access right now. Okay? Reconnaissance is something that we'll talk about later because that does have a technological piece to it when we talk about the tools that you would use to kind of discover some information from a technological standpoint. Right now, we're talking about initial access, right? Phishing lives there, right? And the takeaway from this is that social engineering isn't the whole attack; it's the key to the front door. And I really like that statement that's on the slide deck there. I think it's a great way to kind of look at it, right? So let's now move on. Where is my mouse? Hold on, get over. Haha. Okay. I'm already gonna have to move here. Let's make my box a little bit smaller at least. Okay. I can live with that. Can I live with that? I can live with that. I'll get bigger later. Okay. So, you have a couple different types of threat actors. Who are the people who are trying to leverage social media, or social engineering, not social media, that are leveraging social engineering, right, to try and get you to give up your personal information? That's a big slide later on, but I think that's an important concept to pay attention to, right? You have script kiddies. Script kiddies they don't understand anything about technology. They found a piece of software or they had AI make it for them. I think it might be a little thing. They're using pre-made tools without really understanding how they're used, okay? Then you have hacktivists. Hacktivists are those that are doing social engineering and doing hacking to bring up social justice issues or political causes or anything. Like, for instance, and I'll just use an example, like if people are trying to take down, the Greenpeace is trying to take down some whaling company's website because they're against whaling and want to preserve the rights of whales in the ocean. So they would take down the website, or they would put up a message like the Shiny Hunters did to Canvas last week, as of the recording of this video when it had happened in mid-2026. Those are hacktivists, okay? Then you have insiders, and insiders are really one of the tough ones to deal with, especially after working in IT for as long as I did. Insiders are the people who are disgruntled employees, and they got passed up for a promotion, or they don't like their boss, or they had an idea for the company and their idea didn't get respected, or there's a coworker they don't like. They have legitimate credentials and access to the network. So it's a little tough to catch them sometimes, or at least catch them in the act, or they can do damage on the way out the door if they get fired, but they don't take away their credentials early enough so that they, delete the file server and, do something crazy like that. Then you have cyber terrorists, people that are looking to disrupt civil infrastructure to cause widespread harm. Sometimes that stuff is also motivated by politics, but also a little bit more beliefs. So that's that type of threat actor. And then last but not least, you have transnational criminals, which focuses very heavy on ransomware and stealing intellectual property. That's why it's very important if you own a business or work for a company that you can have data that might be mission critical to the future of the company, and it needs to be guarded and protected. There's another one that's not in this slide deck when I made it that I think is also important, would be nation state actors, or those that are supported by nation states. As of the recording right now, like, you could certainly say that there are hacking groups that operate out of Russia, or operate out of China, or operate out of North Korea, and they're backed by their governments to do what they're doing at times. And that is, or at least in theory, I should say that that's all theoretical, but that's what a nation state actor, threat actor would be. The psychological playbook, right? So how do you get past the defenses of a human being? And remember, human beings are the weakest link in the cybersecurity chain anyway, right? They're the ones that make the bad passwords, putting their username and password on a post-it note on their monitor, all kinds of crazy stuff like that, right? So some of these things, and we'll see how they're used, but let's take a look at some of the things. You have urgency, creating a fake deadline that requires quick action because they want you to just make a snap decision and not really think logically about the message that they had sent. Intimidation, threatening negative consequences if the demands aren't met. Plenty of times you get that fake phone call. This is the IRS. You owe $2,000. If you don't pay, U.S. Marshals are coming to your house in the next 24 hours. You got to go to Target and get a bunch of gift cards. And yeah, okay. So that's intimidation, right? Consensus, creating social pressure by claiming everyone else is doing it, right? Peer pressure is what we used to call it back in the day. But consensus, right? Like, hey, all the cool kids are wearing denim jackets with Ozzy Osbourne on the back. Why don't you just do the same thing because everybody's doing it, right? A joke I would always tell my son, like, hey, why don't you be a New York Jets fan? A lot of people are Jets fan these days. I don't know if you'd want to be a New York Jets fan just yet, although I think they won the offseason this year, hopefully. At least they seem to win the offseason every year. Scarcity, creating a sense of extremely limited availability. That's where you get the salesperson tactic in. If you order now within the next 24 hours, there's no guarantee that this the super widget's going to be in stock, right? A lot of TikTok store stuff always has a lot of, hey, you can get this for $25 in the next 20 hours, and then the price is going to go back to $50. And it creates that false sense of urgency. The price never goes back up to $50. It's always $24, right? But they want to create scarcity, which does have a little bit in common with urgency when you think about it, to say, hey, this is a limited time offer. This thing that you want is rare, so you better go get it now, okay? And then the last one that they outline here is familiarity, pretending to be or know someone that's close to the target to establish trust. Hey, our daughters used to play soccer. Remember, I know Joey. Remember your neighbor Joey lived up the block? I used to hang out on the stoop all the time. That type of stuff, right? Where they try and make it where there's a soft opening. Like, hey, I know you. We're cool, right? These are the tactics that people use. Now, if you're old enough to where you are driving when you're taking the AP exam, or if you've seen your family members or friends' family members go through this, when you buy a car, all of these tactics are used by salespeople. I don't know, there's like 3 or 4 people who are interested in this car. You might want to, just make an offer now and get it over with. Intimidation, absolutely. I can't say, if you don't buy this car now, maybe I just don't sell you a car ever again. Certainly you can do that. Social pressure, this is the most popular car out there. You might want to jump in on it while you can. Scarcity, this is the last model of this car I have on the lot. Now, I can't guarantee when I'm going to get another one in. Familiarity, hey, I'm the sales guy that sold your sister a car. Remember, I'm a fair guy. I can cut a deal with you. That's all sales tactics, and it works. Okay, so always kind of keep that in mind as well. The equation to a phishing email, and we're going to use email as a context, but as we'll see, this can go beyond emails when we talk about phone calls and text messages and stuff. But you have pretexting, which is the story, where the threat actor will create a believable fake scenario. Then you have spoofing, the disguise, faking an email, a website, or identity. You can get an email from, like, say you have an account at Bank of America, and you get an email, and you click the link, and the email, like the link goes to a website that kind of looks like the Bank of America site. The colors are sort of right, but something seems a little off, but it seems legitimate. You don't know. That's spoofing, okay? And that can also go spoofing the identity of a person. Hey, I'm Elon Musk, and I really think you should click this link. When you know it's not Elon Musk, right? Psychological tactics, just the hook, manipulating emotion, and that's where all those other tactics come in: urgency, fear, trust, scarcity. That's a big thing there. And then you have the actual link, the weapon. If you click that link, it might open a fake login page. It might start a chain where it installs a virus, and we'll go over that in a few slides here. But that's the thing that's hiding in that phishing email. And then what does that all create when you take that equation? It creates social engineering compromise, where the goal of doing all this stuff is tricking users into giving access or information. Okay? That is the goal of people who are doing this, to get at your access of information that you would not normally give out. Okay, so very important stuff there. Evidence analysis, the anatomy of a phish. So we have a little fake phishing email here, right? It says, from Human Resources. The subject is final reminder, deadline today. And the body of the email will say, failure to respond to this deadline may result in suspension of payroll access. But look at all the psychological tactics that are on this screen right now. We have spoofing with faking authority. I'm from Human Resources, right? Urgency. There's a deadline. Intimidation. We're going to suspend your access. Elicitation. You're trying to manipulate the user into revealing sensitive information by creating all of these things around it. So you better respond to this email and give me your username and password, or give me your email address, or, put in your login information or whatever, right? So that's the basics. Now, there's one thing that's not on this slide that I'd like to discuss, and there is a little bit more about this later on, and that's when you look at this, another thing that used to be really a big telltale sign of a phishing email is you get a lot of misspelling or bad grammar, and something that they'll go in here would be to user, right? You're never going to get an email that's to you, that's labeled to user, or some other generic title. If it's a company you do business with, they're going to use your name. Okay, and that's something that you kind of have to keep in mind and pay attention to. So, there's a couple different types of phishing, right? Who's on the hook? Who is the target? Phishing is a mass audience, and you see there's the phishing net there, right? So people that will send out phishing emails, they're typically not sending out like 2 or 3. They're sending out like 10,000 in the hopes that 2 or 3 people actually click. Because that's how they make their money. They only need 2 or 3 people to get fooled by it. And then you make their money back, right? Or make a profit on what they're doing, right? So phishing is targeted. The target is a mass audience. Customization is low, meaning there's generic greetings, like I was just mentioning, right? And the effort is minimal. If you have a list of email addresses and you have like 10,000 of them, send them out. Send them out and see who you catch. Right? It's like being on a fishing boat. That's why they call it this, right? It's like being on an old school fishing boat, and you cast that big net and you try and catch as many fish as you can. Spear phishing is where you're targeting a specific person or organization. As a teacher, I see this a lot because we get a lot of phishing emails that are made and designed to look like they come from the principal of the school I teach at. So that would be spear phishing, where they're spoofing the person, right? Another example of that, though, would be where the target is a specific, I just hit my microphone, is a specific person or a specific organization, right? The customization is high, meaning they will use legitimate names and job titles, because part of the reconnaissance ahead of time was to get that information. And you can get that information from everywhere. Let's talk about that a little bit, right? You can go on LinkedIn and you can practically rebuild the hierarchy of all the big players at a specific company down to just a regular employee level. in a management level, the director level, and even maybe even the C level, right? So you could customize these things. And so the reconnaissance effort is a little bit more moderate, and OSINT is online investigations, essentially. So you have to do a bit of work to do spear phishing, but it's absolutely something you have to look out for. And then last but not least, we have whaling. Whaling is we're going after the big guy. We're going after Elon Musk. We're going after Stephanie McMahon from the WWE. We're going after, you can tell I'm a big wrestling fan, sorry. You're going after Roman Reigns, right, if you want to go there, because he's the OTC. You're going after executives, CEOs, important leaders, okay? The customization has to be very high, right? You have to have a lot of detailed information to trick them. Right? That doesn't mean that they're not gullible. It doesn't mean that they're not going to fall victim to the same things psychologically that could be used. But doing the generic title and having misspellings and all that other stuff, that is not going to work. So you have to have a high level of customization, which means you have to have a high effort of reconnaissance to have good information before you go whaling. Okay? And now, so yeah, that's like a really important thing. Some of the ways we can deliver phishing, right? So the most popular way, or the one that's fairly common, is via email. Fake messages via an email designed to trick users into giving information by clicking links. Okay? You have phishing, which is voice phishing, right? When you get that phone call, like I said before, hello, this is the IRS. You owe us $2,000. If you don't respond, blah 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 blah. You know, if they leave you a voicemail, sometimes call this number back. Never call the number back, because then they know your number is real, and then you'll wind up on 1,000 other phone call lists, and you'll be blocking spam calls forever. So don't do that. Okay, I would have telemarketers and phishing calls would call me during the school day, and I would actually pick it up and put it on speaker in front of the students, and then like just torture the person in school, which used to be kind of fun. I'm gonna make my box bigger because I left it small from before. So yeah, I used to have a lot of fun with that. But in essence, you don't want to pick up those calls; just block them and call it a day. Smishing. And I'm not really on board with all these alternate phishing names, but smishing is phishing through SMS or text messages. And you've seen that a lot of times too. I get ones about, I didn't pay a toll when I was in California. Click this link so you can pay the toll. And if you don't pay the fines, we're going to have a warrant out for your arrest and like all that. Another one is, this is the United States Postal Service. You have a package, you didn't pick it up. So please, click this link to confirm your personal information so we can try resending it. And it's fake. Like, the Postal Service is never going to send you a message like that. Okay? And then the last one, which I'm going to be honest with, full disclosure, I have never heard of this term before. I have never taught this before. It makes sense. I didn't know it had a name. But QR codes, quishing, right? And I thought about this when I was about to post this, but I want you to think about this too. The next time you go to a restaurant and they have on the table a QR code that you can hit with your phone to get the menu, right? How do you know that someone can't switch that QR code back and then give you some type of virus that works on iOS on an iPhone or an Android phone, or click a link and it says, "Hi, welcome to Chili's or Applebee's. Why don't you put in your name and address and social security number, and we'll add you to our frequent customer list," or something. It's so easy to swap QR codes, so I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. I've certainly seen it in the news where it has happened, but there you go. It's called quishing, so we learn something new every day. The credential harvesting funnel. I don't necessarily love this slide as I created it, but Path A means that adversaries copy real emails exactly but replace a legitimate link with a malicious one. So they might get a hold of a legitimate email that was sent out in an organization and just tweak it so that the link actually goes to where the threat actors want it to go, not where the original people had created the email intended. Another thing that they will do is called farming, which the user will type the correct URL, and this gets a little technical, and this is a subject to discuss later on, honestly, but let's introduce it a little bit. What they will do, it's called DNS poisoning, that redirects your browser to the threat actor server, not your actual destination. Now, I don't want to get too technical with that, but DNS is a way where you take, when you surf the web, it's what converts the techie stuff to English and the English stuff to techie stuff. I'm not going to go any more detailed than that. Some of you out here that are taking this class know what I mean by that. It's all IP addresses and domain names and all that fun stuff. But I want to keep it easy for now because there could be new students taking AP Cyber that might not know anything about that just yet. So they make it so that when you go to a website and type in www.0x-feed.org, but they stole a process where it points you to their fake site, not the real one. And then if that fake site is asking you for credentials that you typically type in, you just type it in, don't think about it, and now they stole your username and password. So the whole thing is they're harvesting for your credentials, and that's what the trap is on the bottom there. Okay? I don't like this. I almost took this out, but I wanted to at least show it, and we'll visit DNS in a couple of chapters. We don't have to deal with that right now. The VIP threat, business email compromise, right? So a fake executive or vendor emails requesting money or sensitive info. The tactic is that you're relying heavily on authority and familiarity. Hey, we're your supplier for pencils. You didn't pay us yet. Here's an invoice. And you have no idea how many companies pay that invoice and never check to see if the vendor's legitimate. I think there was something in the news not too long ago that I want to say it was a school district, not mine, but a school district somewhere where they were just blindly paying, and the invoices were small, which is why they were paying them. But those invoices add up if they're fake. If you hit up a school district and you bill them $50 a month on an invoice that looks totally real for a service that could totally look legit, Home Office just pays the bill in some instances. And if you do that every month for a year, what's 50 times 12, right? You made yourself, 12 times 5 is 60 to 0, so you made yourself $600. Okay? So, yeah, that's something that could very easily be overlooked. The other thing, too, it also involves compromised accounts that look like domains that can bypass security, like blocking websites in a firewall type of situation. So you make the URL look legit, so it sneaks past some of your security. That's technical again too, but really in the end of the day, it's pure social engineering where they're trying to get you to send that wire transfer or pay that invoice or do something, and use all the other psychological tactics in that business email compromise situation to get you to do that. This is also a little technical. I'm going to put myself up here because this information is actually important. Now, in a much later chapter and in any cybersecurity program worth its salt, you talk about the different types of malware. What is malware for those who are unfamiliar with the term? Malware is malicious software. If anybody out here is a fan of Disney movies, we all know the 1959 classic Sleeping Beauty. And who is the villain in Sleeping Beauty? Maleficent, because mal is the Latin prefix for bad. So any word that starts with mal typically means it's bad or it's evil or it's not good, the opposite of good, right? So malware is malicious software. And malicious software, malware, is the overall category that these things on the screen are part of. You have a virus that is typically activated by the user executing it or opening a file, clicking like a program that they download, and then you double-click the executable, thinking that you're going to run a program, but it's not a program, it's a virus, and then it does all kinds of bad stuff to your computer. A Trojan, one of my favorites, and we'll go into, this is like a later class where we go into a little bit more in detail, but one of the things that a link in a phishing email can do is a Trojan, where it looks like something harmless, but then when you click it, it's bad. Like it could be a Word doc or a PDF, and then you double-click that PDF, and it's not a PDF, it's a virus, and it was attached itself to the PDF, and then it does all kinds of bad stuff. You could click a link and install spyware, where it's tracking and sending back to the threat actors how you're using your computer, what website you go to, maybe even a keylogger, which is the next one, right? Spyware and keyloggers kind of go hand in hand in a way. Where it will send info back to the threat actor as to what you're doing, whether it's tracking websites, applications, whatever, right? Keyloggers records the keystrokes, where it actually just takes a text file and records every button you hit on your keyboard. And it sounds a little tedious, but a threat actor can sit there and kind of reverse engineer. If you're looking at just a text file and you see www.bankofamerica.com, probably the next set of text is your username and your password, potentially, right? So that's how they can get at that. And then you have ransomware, which is really in the news a lot. It's what a lot of threat actors love doing, where they encrypt data or steal data and then demand payment to get that data back. Okay? So ransomware is a big one. There's another one that falls in the category is crypto ransomware, where instead of asking for money or a wire transfer or some traditional payment, they are looking for like Bitcoin or Ethereum or something of that nature. So crypto ransomware is out there as well. So these are the things that is the end result when you get tricked by phishing potentially. This could be the payload of that link that you should not click in that email. Or if you click the link and it's a fake website and you put in your credentials, the next thing that happens could be something like this. Okay? And once again, much later in AP Cyber, we go through these types of viruses in much more detail, and we also look and see, how do you know you have a virus, or how do you know a Trojan was opened? How do you know if you have spyware? What things do you look for? That's later in the program as well. AI, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but let's get into it now. Back in the day, like 3 years ago, right? Phishing was a little bit easier to spot because you'd have a lot of if you're getting email and you're in an English-speaking language, you will have threat actors from another company that don't know English, so they run their phishing email through like a Google Translate. And as we know, Google Translate doesn't make things perfect. It'll give you the right translation, but it doesn't give you right syntax or bad grammar and everything. So phishing emails, one of the highlights of being able to discover that was the bad grammar part. Claude, Chat, Gemini, any of the AI models and stuff that are out there now, you can make flawless looking, perfectly executed grammar in these phishing emails, where that is not a thing that you can use to detect. Now you really have to study the link that's on there, hover your mouse over the link, get the real URL. I'm going to show you a tool here in a second when I'm done with the PowerPoint, where we can take a look at something you can use to see if a link is a phishing email and all that. But the grammar thing, AI has really kind of changed the game with a lot of things with cybersecurity, and we'll talk about that in later episodes as well. But that's certainly a thing right there. So the impact, when the hook lands, victims surrender their personal information, whether it's birth dates, pets, names, allowing adversaries to bypass like challenge questions. If they elicited out of you, like they knew your username but not your password, they might get at what's your mother's maiden name, what's your pet's name, what's your kids' names, where were you born, because those are the types of challenge questions when they go to try and get into your account. They take over your account and the victims surrender their OTP or credentials, granting direct access. I know of a time when my wife's Facebook account got hacked, and she did not have two-factor authentication on, and we'll talk about that later, basically where you don't just log in, you also have like a second backup way where you can get like a one-time password or get a code to an email or whatever. She didn't have that set up, and the threat actor took over her Facebook page and then set up two-factor authentication so that every time we tried to get the one-time password, it went to them, not us. Very difficult to defend again. Not very difficult to deal with. We got our account back eventually, but... And then the foothold is once malware is installed, once they have that initial access has been granted, now they can move within your system. And once they can move within your device, that grants them the ability to potentially move within the network that your device resides on. And then that's where the real bad cybersecurity stuff happens. And that's where the hacking matrix kind of stuff goes on. I believe that's the end. So we are at the end here, but I do want to show you a couple of resources, and I'm going to put these on the in the links below on when I post this to YouTube. This here is the unit at a glance. Right now we are in 1.1, and we kind of explain some social engineering tactics. We did the possible impact of the victims. We just discussed that in the last slide, and we discussed identifying common indicators of social engineering tactics. What are they used? The different psychology, the links, the and all that. So we kind of did that, and we went through those scenarios and everything. Couple of things here. There's a link. That's ChatGPT, which I did use to get some of this material tonight. We have phishing here, right? This is from Stanford University, a very reputable place there. So they have a phishing awareness program on their main website where you can look at some infographics, get some good information. I think that might be a good resource for you. Phishing, this is from Indiana University, where they give you some actual scenarios, right? Where you meet Gordon, right? And Gordon's a new manager. 1 week after starting, he gets an email that looks like it's from the IT support center, which requires he verify his company password, what looks weird about that, and it walks you through the scenarios and what you should look for. That's a really good resource. I would go to that website. And then I think that's the only ones I have there. There was another one. Hold on. I think it's in my ChatGPT search here because I had to look for it. PhishTank. That's what I wanted. PhishTank is a really good resource. If you are unsure about a URL that's in an email, copy it, put it in this site, and it'll tell you, yeah, there's a history of that. That's a phishing site. It's bad. Or we don't have any information on this particular website, good or bad. Or, this email, this link is fine. This is probably legitimate. But it maintains a database of all the bad websites that are out there. Don't go to any of these sites. If you really want to play around, one thing you could do is open up a virtual machine for those who know how to do that. Open the link on a VM to see what it does, and then just kill the VM before it can really do anything. That's a little bit risky, but something that good cybersecurity people like exploring and messing around with. So use that phishing email too. I will put links to all this stuff in the YouTube when we are done, which we are pretty much done. So visit us at the 0x_feed on Instagram if you'd like to check out the latest in AI and cyber news and everything. I post on that maybe twice a week, sometimes 3 times, and I share a lot of stories and everything on there. That's a little bit more news focused and not directly AP cyber, but a fun resource nonetheless. Your YouTube channel you already have found because you're watching this, but our YouTube channel is going to be there and available for you. My email is at rob@0x.feed.com if you have any questions. And our website, www.0x-feed.org, is now 90% up and running. I just got to make a couple of tweaks and fixes to it. But go there. I have links to our YouTube. I have links to cyber AI and other cybersecurity education resources. And I have a link to my Teachers Pay Teachers account, which is for teachers, obviously, because I have some really good resources to help teach AP Cyber staged and ready to go. I'm up to Unit 3 on Teachers Pay Teachers in terms of resources where I offer lesson plans, content breakdowns, PowerPoints, exams, quizzes, worksheets, really a real big bevy of stuff. So go check that out. And I'm pretty much done. So you guys have yourself a nice morning, a nice afternoon, or a nice good night, wherever you are. And I will catch you in the next one. Until then, take care.